You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.
Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Today is, what is today? Weekend, Saturday, March 21st, 2020. This is podcast number 8. We're pushing through them. Shout out to me. Can I give myself a shout out? Or is that kind of corny? How comedians, they'll give themselves a shout out, or rather the audience, the crowd that is there. Give yourself a round of applause. You know what? Give All Things Sports with Mike Davis a round of applause. Give myself a round of applause. Too corny? Let me know if that was too corny. But anyway, though, I hope you're having a amazing start to your weekend. Here at All Things Sports is podcast number 8. Thank you for joining me today. Again, you're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify or on Anchor, I thank you for spending your Saturday with me, or whatever day it is that you choose to listen to this podcast. If you're listening to the restream on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like, and comment on the podcast. New podcasts air every Wednesday and Saturday, so please feel free to share the podcast on any of the social media outlets that you use. I won't take up much more of your time. Let's get into it. First things first, I always like to start off with all things Atlanta. If you're new to the podcast, the reason being, well, it's where I live. It's where I'm from. The national media, as far as sports goes, you don't really hear much about anything Atlanta. Until Tom Brady signed with the Bucs, you can pretty much go Tampa Bay with that as well. A small markets, we got to stick together. If we're not going to talk, if they're not going to talk about us, then who is? I will. Your host. But anyway, though, all things Atlanta. The Falcons, they were in the news this week as they made some pretty big signings. They signed running back, Todd Gurley and Dante Fowler. They made some other signings as far as tight end goes after losing Austin Hooper as well. Todd Gurley, he's been named to the Pro Bowl 3 times. He's a 2-time All-Pro. He was the 2015 AP Offensive Rookie of the Year and the 2017 AP Offensive Player of the Year. Gurley has been one of the best running backs since he's entered the league in 2015, amassing 7,494 total yards, 70 touchdowns, and 5 NFL seasons. That is the most in the league during that period. The Falcons, they also agreed in principle to a 3-year deal, $48 million, with a defensive end who was also a teammate of Todd Gurley in L.A., with a Dante Fowler this past Wednesday. Fowler, he had 11.5 sacks with the Rams last season, 27.5 career sacks over 63 games. Fowler is coming off a strong contract year. So I want to touch on particularly those 2 signings. Now, Dante Fowler, I'm always weary about a guy coming off a contract year, because a guy will play his butt off, will play his behind off to get that next contract. He has to keep eating. He has family to feed, bills to pay. So I'm weary about guys who, they're okay, they're average, or maybe a slightly above average, and they go out and they ball out during that contract year. I've seen it before. For some reason, those players are slipping my mind right now. I'm normally on my toes about remembering things off the top of my head. But the players I want to think of that had just thought of one, had a contract year. What was the guy's name? Played for the Dallas Cowboys, their Super Bowl run. He had the 2 picks in the Super Bowl. I believe it was against Pittsburgh. It was a contract year, and he signed a huge contract somewhere else. So I want to say Larry something is on the top of my head, but he was a defensive back on that Cowboys team. Played a big factor. Parlayed that into a big contract. I think he signed with the Oakland Raiders at the time. Not sure, but my point being, as I said earlier, I'm wary about guys on contract years. Look, me being a Falcon fan, I hope Dante Fowler comes in and he balls out and he has one of the best seasons ever in his career. But I'm not going to put much stock into it. It's a good signing. I don't know whether that signing is a good replacement as far as Vic Beasley goes, who we lost in free agency, or we really let go. He really had been a disappointment since his second year in the league. He never touched that plateau again. We thought we had a pass rusher in Beasley, and I don't know what happened. No one knows what happened, but he signed with the Tennessee Titans. But I'm hoping that Fowler can have one of those years. He had a great season last year, as I said earlier. He had 11.5 sacks last year with the Rams. So when you can get that kind of productivity anywhere on the defensive line, you have yourself a stud. So let's hope, as far as the Falcons fans, let's hope for us. He comes in and he balls out. Todd Gurley, another signing I'm a little weary about. The running back position has been devalued in the NFL. And Gurley was a monster of a player. He's from Georgia. Well, I believe he is from Georgia. He came out of the University of Georgia. I know he was dismissed for some things that transpired. I won't get into that. But I'm weary about his knees. He hasn't been the same since the year they went to the Super Bowl. If you remember, he didn't play a lot that year they went to the Super Bowl, and that conference champion was the conference championship game against the Saints. He didn't play a lot in that game. He didn't play a lot in the Super Bowl. I'm a little worried about those knees. It's one thing for a guy to have, maybe he torn something like a torn ACL. The ACL is not really a death penalty injury, a death sentence injury like it used to be in the past, like in the 90s. Guys come back from that relatively very quick. But there's something else going on because he played last season. And maybe last year was just the year coming back off the injury. Most times you need a full season after the injury has happened to get back into that game shape, game speed that you're at. Maybe that's what it is, but this is a prove-it year for him. They only signed him to a 1-year deal. I believe it was for $6 million. I could be wrong, but I believe it was $6 million for the 1-year deal. Excuse me. But this is a prove-it year for Todd Gurley. So I guess in a way it's a win-win for us. If he balls out, Falcons can potentially do some things. You have Matt Ryan under center, Gurley behind him. You have Julio Jones on the outside. Things are looking up on the offensive side of the ball for the Falcons. They just they traded for a tight end from the Baltimore Ravens. I'll get into that signing in the next podcast, but I wanted to touch on these two players, particularly Todd Gurley and Dante Fowler. So hopefully these signings work out. Prove a year for Todd Gurley. Dante Fowler, let's hope he can keep the productivity that he was giving the Los Angeles Rams and even the Jaguars. He spent a little time with the Jaguars. Todd Gurley is only 25 years old, people. 25. Todd Gurley has a lot of football left. But again, I'm worried about those knees. The fact that the Rams are going to eat a lot of money cutting him, it doesn't put me at ease about his knees. So just a little worried, but they're okay. I wouldn't call them great signings for me. They're decent. It's decent. So these are guys you need for now, but they're decent. We're going in the right direction, so that's a good thing. All right, so transitioning over to a little MLB baseball. If you heard my earlier podcast, you know that the AJC, the newspaper here in Atlanta, they're remembering the '95 Atlanta Braves World Series team. That team ended up beating the Cleveland Indians. Was it 4-2? I believe they won in 6. So I wanted to remember them as well. I'm just rattling off a certain player from that team each podcast. You know, names you might not have heard of in a while. Today's name is going to be David Justice. You guys remember David? Outfielder, right fielder for the Atlanta Braves. And don't just remember him because he was with Holly Berry for a little while. No, they were married for a little bit. Didn't work out, unfortunately. But that's been a lot of cases and a lot of Holly Berry's relationships. Look, we can go all day with that. That's a different story, different time, you know. But we know Dave Justice was married to Holly Berry, and yeah. But anyway, though, that World Series year, Dave Justice kind of had an average All-Star year. It wasn't All-Star blow you away numbers. It was more of a guy that you can use in the middle of your lineup that has some pop in his bat. You know, that World Series year in '95, he batted .253, 24 home runs, 78 RBIs. 78 runs batted in. So it kind of pedestrian all-star numbers, if you will. You know? Like I said, not numbers is going to blow you out of the water. And he had a very average to below average postseason looking at his numbers. That year wasn't his best year. He's had better years than his World Series years. But there's always a but. The one run that mattered in that World Series was the Dave Justice home run. In Game 6, he scored the only run, hitting a homer, brought the World Series title to the city of Atlanta. After, you know, he got to some little backlash with people from Atlanta. You know, he was upset that the atmosphere in Cleveland, what he was saying was, I can't remember word for word what he was saying, but the fans in Cleveland were showing more support than the fans in Atlanta. But at this point, the whole country kind of sees that now. They kind of see Atlanta. I hate to say this. Atlanta has some fair weather fans. And if you're not winning, Atlanta fans will not show up. They just won't. They will not show up at all. But Dave Justice, he was the hero in that World Series. He brought it home. He scored the only run that mattered. Braves won that game 1-0. I believe that game was a one-hit shutout by Tom Glavine. Wohlers came in to save it. So there you go. There's your '95 Braves World Series remembrance. Shout out to the Braves. Give that team an applause. Give that team an applause. That team, only team in Atlanta to bring home a championship outside of the Atlanta United. So shout out to the Braves. Wow. So this opening segment has carried on quite a bit. Wow. Didn't mean for the first segment to go this long, but hey, here we are. Before I get out of this segment, of course, I have to ask you the question of the day. So I saw something yesterday that caught my eyes. Waka Flocka. That's a guy you probably haven't heard from in a while. It's been a long time since I've heard from Waka, but he spoke yesterday. The Atlanta rap star Waka Flocka says his marriage is doing just fine without a prenup agreement to his wife, Love and Hip Hop star, Atlanta star Tammy Rivera. I have to put a disclaimer out here. I don't watch Love and Hip Hop. I don't know who most of these people are. I don't know who Tammy Rivera is. Never heard of her. This is my first time hearing of her. I don't know what she does. Atlanta, the Love and Hip Hop is not my scene. No, it's not my. In the words of Austin Powers, it's not my bag, baby. You know. But Waka Flocka goes on to say, for me, love doesn't stand on the pedestal as money, and money can never stand on the. I'm sorry, I read that all wrong. I'll restart that for you. Waka goes on to say, for me, love doesn't stand on a pedestal as money, and money can never stand on a pedestal as love. If you love a person, it shouldn't be money. It shouldn't be sick. It shouldn't be fat. It shouldn't be no color, no shape, or nothing, he elaborated. Now, for me, if I marry you and I'm this rich guy, you're rich too, but I'm supposed to be the man that makes your spirit rich. Continuing his train of thought, Waka added that he feels that's what's wrong with couples today. I see what he's saying. Look, I've been married before. I'm gladly not married now. But to that, my question of the day is, since Waka does not believe in prenups, do you believe in prenups? That's man or woman. Do you believe in prenups? Is that something that you need in your marriage? You know, I don't have or never have had the money that Waka has. So there was no prenup that was needed for me. I mean, oh, you want to walk away with a pair of shoes, maybe? But that's the question of the day. Do you believe in prenups? uh, this is a guy show, so to speak. But, women can come in too and listen and give their thoughts. But, since we got the bros listening, go ahead, put your 2 cents in. I want to know what you guys out there think. But that's the question of the day. Do you believe in prenups? And on that, I'm going to take a break. I'll catch you in the next segment. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. All right, and welcome back. Thank you for joining me. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. Let's get into the football part of things going on in the sports world. Again, the NFL, is BAU, business as usual with the NFL. So the Cowboys this week, they placed the franchise tag on Dak Prescott. Prescott received the exclusive franchise tag around $33 million. The Cowboys chose that route over the non-exclusive tag of $28 million. With the move, the Cowboys have until July 15th to work out a long-term contract. If no deal is reached, Prescott will have to play the 2020 season under the tag, and the sides can do the same dance next off season. With the exclusive tag, Prescott is not permitted to talk to other teams. He is the 6th quarterback ever to receive the exclusive franchise tag. Kirk Cousins was the last franchise tag quarterback in 2017 with the Washington Redskins, who did not reach a long-term deal, and he played the full season under the tag. If you know, he just got a 2-year extension on his deal with the Minnesota Vikings. My thoughts on this situation is, I look at it 2 ways. Dak just got one of the biggest paydays ever in his life. He'll get $33 million this year if they don't work out a deal. So that's what he'll be playing. That's normally what the tag does. It pays you within a certain percentage amount of whatever position that you play, you're going to receive the top pay at that position. So it's worth around $33 million this year. So he'll get that. So that's awesome. In my the way I look at it, if you look at it as like how Kirk Cousins did, Kirk Cousins, he played under the tag. He got his money and he proved that he can win. Washington still didn't want to re-sign him after that tag, and he got paid in Minnesota. I think Dak should do the same thing. If you feel this disrespected by the Cowboys and Jerry Jones, play under the tag because you're under contract. So it's nothing you can hold out, whatever. I get it. You can get hurt. You go out there and play, then you don't see a dime. I get it. It's a slippery slope, because like I just mentioned with Kirk Cousins, he got away with it. He played 2 years unscathed, got his money those 2 years with the Redskins, and then he got a big payday with the Vikings. I think all of his money was guaranteed, which is rare in the league. And then he just signed a 2-year contract extension. So if you're Dak, but this is the reason why the player should not have voted yes to the CBA. Because you should have been fighting for guaranteed money and to get rid of this stupid franchise tag that teams can designate to you. But again, like I said, the union with the NFL is one of the weakest unions in all of sports, in all of it. Make the owners suffer. The players, you guys have a lot of leverage. A lot of leverage. You guys make enough money where you can put a certain percentage of that money up every paycheck. You're not paid like the everyday citizen, where you have that citizen that's living check to check. They have mouths to feed, so that money doesn't stretch as long. And I'm not trying to get in anybody's pockets. I don't get in grown men's pockets. But that particular group of grown men playing professional sports, even if you are the 12th man on an NBA bench, or you're the 53rd man on an NBA roster, or you're that last guy making an MLB roster, they get bumps for being on the roster. You can take a little certain percentage of that money, put that money up. Just a little bit. So this is why they shouldn't have signed that new CBA. You should have fought for guaranteed contracts. Because look at the mess that Dak Prescott is in now. Prescott wants to be paid. He feels that he is a elite quarterback. I don't think he's elite. Now, I saw something where someone said that Jerry Jones would have paid Tony Romo. Now, I don't want to turn this into a race thing. I don't know. Now, I've seen black quarterbacks play for the Cowboys, and they haven't fared well. Now, some of them, it was their own doing, a la Quincy Carter, but if I'm Dak, this is just me speaking, what I would do. I'm not negotiating any more contract talk. But I'm done with it. I'm done. If you don't see my value now, and you're not going to see it at the end of 16 games, I've shown what I can do. I'll play this season under the tag. And see, that's trigger. That's because next season, I believe they can do the same thing next season. So I see what he's saying. Well, no, because next year, is he a free agent next year? I don't know if he's unrestricted or if he is a restricted free agent. But if I'm Dak, I'll play under the tag. I'll take my chances. And the minute I'm an unrestricted free agent, I'm out. I'm gone. Bye, Jerry's World. You guys can have it. I'm out. See you later. Some guys have a problem with this. It's like with the Titans. Look what they did with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. They gave Ryan Tannehill, who's 30, He's 31 years old. You know, let's jump into that. Let's jump into that now. Let's talk about the Ryan Tannehill thing. Ryan Tannehill, he got 4 years for $118 million. The Tennessee Titans and Ryan Tannehill agreed to terms on a 4-year contract extension. $62 million in fully guaranteed money and $91 million in total guarantees. Okay. So of that 118, $91 million of his money is going to be guaranteed. Wow. Wow. But yet, you franchise tag Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry needs to feel disrespected. And he needs to move on about his business once he is an unrestricted free agent. Don't pay this 30-something-year-old quarterback. Look, I'm not a Ryan Tannehill hater. I like Ryan Tannehill. I think he's one of the more better quarterbacks in the league. He just happened to play for a bad Miami Dolphins team. My dad, he is a Miami Dolphins fan. Okay. He grew up in Florida, so that's where what he does. It's the Dolphins. Dolphins over everything. And I've had discussions with him about Ryan Tannehill, and I told him, I said, what is it that Dolphin fans love piling on Tannehill? Me being in Atlanta, I don't see a lot of Dolphin games, and when I do see highlights, I see him throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and maybe 1 pick. And he's like, yeah, but a lot of that comes in garbage time. They're trying to come back, and whatever. Just Tannehill, he just isn't the guy. I don't know Dolphin fans, because look what Ryan Tannehill did this year with the Tennessee Titans. He played a part in taking them to the AFC title game. But as one of my homeboys says, all Tannehill had to do was hand it off to the Bison. The Bison being that of running back Derrick Henry, who was doing most of the work. That man was a workhorse this year, and he should have gotten paid. Okay. I have no problem with Ryan Tannehill. Pay Henry first, and then use that tag on Tannehill. I think Tannehill's earned his money. A lot of times you're not going to be paid on, really you're paid on your performance. Ryan Tannehill, he's performed the last couple of years, whether you like him or not, or you just want to look at what he did with the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are a mess. I can't even say what's going on with that team. No one knows what's going on with the Miami Dolphins. They're the Miami Dolphins, okay? Ryan Tannehill should be thanking whoever it was that got him out of there. He should be on his knees praying right now. Thank you. Thank you for getting me out of Miami. That's odd too, because you don't have a lot of people saying, oh, I can't wait to get out of Miami. Miami is a great place to live. I love visiting Florida. My job, because of the coronavirus situation that's going on, there are a lot of companies that are shutting down. So my company can't receive certain product because other companies have shut down. So I am off next week from my job. And I really do want to get down to Florida. Love Florida. I love going down there. But Ryan Tannehill, yeah, he is going to get paid and get his money. Ryan Tannehill, this year he played in his first playoff game, making it to the AFC Championship game as well. And he was also selected to the Pro Bowl for the first time in his career. Tannehill started the final 12 games of the season for the Titans, and he won Comeback Player of the Year for his stellar 2019 seasons. Give that man a round of applause, please. Yeah, right. I got no beef with Tannehill. I just think the Titans should have done it another way. Pay Henry, franchise tag Tannehill. He's an older quarterback. Let him prove it the next 2 years, and then pay him as well. If that's your guy, I don't think Tannehill's going to be there long term anyway. But I don't know. The way the rules are now, quarterbacks can play until they're 87 years old now. That's just where we're at. So outside of those last two quarterbacks I just mentioned, you have other quarterbacks from the NFC South that are looking for new jobs. Cam Newton and Jameis Winston. Cam Newton, if you're Cam Newton, how do you feel? How do you really feel right now? I mean, Cam Newton should be livid. The Panthers are at the point, they signed Teddy Bridgewater to a contract. Teddy Bridgewater earned that deal, but before I get into him, Cam Newton was highly disrespected by the Carolina Panthers. They didn't even bother to look for a trade. They told Cam and his agent, you two can look for a trade, and whatever you find, okay, that's cool, we'll send you there. The Panthers don't want anything to do with this. You find it, and you get out of town. We have our new guy, Teddy Bridgewater. Shout out to Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he suffered a horrific injury with the Minnesota Vikings. He's come back. He's made the best of his career. He came in when Drew Brees went down last season, and I believe he went 5-0 as a starter. Now, he lost the game that he came into, but I watched that game. That game was against the Los Angeles Rams, and he was putting the ball in the receiver's pockets. But I think that because they just saw Brees went out, their mind had been taken out of the game. And Bridgewater didn't look that bad in that game either. But he played his behind off, and he earned the deal that he got with Carolina. So I have no problem with that. Shout out to him. That just, you just want to know what happened with Cam Newton. I don't know where he's going to go. At first, they were saying Chicago, but it can't be Chicago because they just traded for Nick Foles from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they have their own mess now up there with Trubisky. Now you got Foles. So I don't see Cam Newton on there. You're not going to have three starters competing to start. So that's out the window. The only other option I see, honestly, is the LA Chargers. Is that a good fit? Cam might love it in LA. You see Cam Newton's personality. The stuff he was pulling off in Charlotte, imagine getting him in LA. Now he's in LA with I don't want to say what LA is, what kind of town it is. Some people say it's highly weird. It's a weird town. But Cam's personality definitely fits the personality of Los Angeles, California. So that might be a good fit if he goes out there. Jameis Winston, I have no idea where he's going. I feel bad for him because remember at the end of last year when he said he deserves a contract, he said, I balled out. I balled minus the picks. And he did. I can't knock him for that. He did. Jameis Winston balled out. The New England Patriots came out and instantly, emphatically said no to Jameis Winston. We're not bringing him in. Belichick will not deal with that. The first interception that Jameis Winston makes, or throws rather, Belichick will lose his mind. Okay? So you won't see Jameis Winston in New England. It's not going to happen. I don't know where he's going to end up either. I don't think it's going to be L.A. I don't know. This is one of those things he might have. I heard one of my boys said Miami. Maybe if he wants to stay in the state of Florida. I mean, is that a good option? The Dolphins? If you're a free agent quarterback, do you want to go to Miami? I don't want to go to Miami. Ryan Tannehill is thanking whoever for getting him out of Miami. Miami just is not the place to be right now, but I don't know. But those two guys, they're looking for jobs. Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, we don't know where they're going to end up. I think Cam ends up with the Chargers. That's a good fit. The two personalities are perfect marriage made in heaven for those two groups. Jameis Winston, we don't know where he's going. He's looking, but, good luck there. Also, a little tidbit. I want to throw something at you right here. This is something people don't think about. The New England Patriots. Now, when you think of New England, you think Tom Brady. Well, before Tom Brady, they also had a quarterback by the name of Drew Bledsoe. I want you guys to think about it. I'm not counting injuries when I say this, because there was a year, Matt Castle came in and played. Brady tore his ACL and whatnot. So I'm not counting injury seasons, because those guys were still the starters during their injury year. Even when Bledsoe went down, when the year Brady won the Super Bowl, remember, Bledsoe was still the starter. But remember, the big debate was once Bledsoe came back from that Mo Lewis hit from the New York Jets. Remember, people want to know who Belichick was going to play. Was it going to be Bledsoe? Was it going to be Brady? And remember, the Pittsburgh game before the first Super Bowl that Brady won, Brady got knocked out of the AFC title game against Pittsburgh. Drew Bledsoe came in I believe it was the second quarter, and he carried that Patriot team and got them to the Super Bowl. I love the Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady story. I love it. So since 1993, the Patriots have had only get that, people, two starting quarterbacks since 93. Not counting injury years to the QBs, because they started the year as the starter. People, I want you to understand, people, that is 26 years. We're not counting this season because there will be a new quarterback. 26 years, the Patriots have only started two starting quarterbacks. Those quarterbacks, Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady. Let that sink in. You talk about stability. That is stability to the ultimate. You can even throw the New England. You can even throw the Green Bay Packers in there. I haven't looked them up, but the Packers are in there with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Remember, Rodgers backed up Brett Favre. That's how long Aaron's been in the league. No one realizes it, but I just want to throw a little tidbit out there for you. Think about it. Let it marinate. On that note, I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into a little Carmelo Anthony talk, a little NBA talk. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. I'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome back. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. Thank you for letting me be a part of your weekend. Getting into a little NBA talk. Carmelo Anthony recently was telling a reporter from Blazers.com saying that the Blazers needed him just as much as he needed them. It was a mutual way of them needing each other. He goes on and says, I think the biggest part of it was I had to be right mentally. I had to be right emotionally and spiritually. Carmelo Anthony said. What I always tell people now is Portland came at a pivotal time in my life and my career. I needed Portland at this point in time. What I was looking for as far as on the court and off the court, I needed it. I needed the serenity of being in Portland. I need the space. I needed this me time to figure out me at the end of the day, and to get my mind right and to focus on my body and emotion. I really needed Portland as much as they needed me from a basketball standpoint. I needed Portland for other reasons. I always say, God don't make no mistakes. And this came at a pivotal time for me, and I'm taking advantage of it. And as you can see, it shows, right? I'm not talking from a basketball standpoint. It's just the happiness and just being here and being around the guys and being able to love the game and travel and talk and give my experience and give my knowledge to people. That's what's most important to me at this point. Melo, he before the NBA shutdown, due to the COVID-19. Carmelo, he was average. Well, he appeared in 50 games for the Blazers. He's putting up 15 points, 6 boards, 1 assist a game while shooting 42% from the field and 37% from three-point land and 84% from the charity stripe. The Blazers are 22-28 with Anthony in the lineup. If the season starts up again, Portland will be in the 9th spot in the Western Conference standings after making it all the way to the Western Conference Finals last season. The Blazers have been inconsistent pretty much all of this 2019-2020 season. Now, Melo wouldn't really go into what he meant by he needed the Blazers at this pivotal point in his life, but Melo is a man who's married. He's married to a celebrity, and he's done some things in his marriage that I'm sure he's not proud of. You know, there's the whole extramarital affair. You know, I won't judge him on that. I don't judge people when it comes to that. You know, I've been married myself, so I know what goes into a marriage. I know how a marriage can drain you. And I think Melo is saying that he needed this to have peace within himself in his life. You know, this is a man where pretty much all he knew was basketball. That was it. And sometimes when you're in a situation like that, basketball or whatever it is that you're doing in life becomes your safe haven. You know, even if, let's say, you're having, you know, you just had something happen in your life, and the only way for you to get away from that particular situation is for you go to work. Work is your safe haven. That's you getting away from whatever it is going on in your everyday life. That's your peace. For those couple of hours, you know, your mind is going to be focused on something else. So I'm glad Melo is making peace with himself about whatever it is that he needs to make peace of. You know, that's something that I don't wish. I don't wish anything bad on anybody. You know, I would love for the whole world to be happy and find happiness within yourself. You know, and money's not going to bring that. Marrying somebody is not going to bring that. You know, you have to find peace and happiness within yourself. That's not something that someone else can do. So I get where Melo is coming from, and I wish him nothing but the best and success going forward. So me and my boys at work, we were having the Carmelo Anthony discussion and where he ranks as far as a Hall of Famer. Now, one of my boys, he goes on to say that Melo isn't a Hall of Famer. I wouldn't go that far, but I did bring up a point that if you're going to put Melo in the Hall of Fame, this guy that I'm about to mention needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Okay. Now, I think he's maybe like 5,000. Melo's like 5,000 points ahead of this guy. But basketball-wise, Melo is nothing but a professional scorer, if you will. So if you're going to put him in, then I would have to put my man Joe Johnson in. Joe Johnson gets into the Hall of Fame. Joe Johnson is top 50 in scoring, people, career scoring. Top 50. I want you guys at home or wherever you're listening to this podcast at to let that sink in. Joe Johnson is top 50 in scoring. Now, remember, back in the 90s, the NBA announces top 50 players of all time. So, in the past 25 years or so since that, 25 years since that, would you put Joe Johnson in that? Would Joe Johnson make the top? Well, you know what? I'm debating myself here because I'm thinking now of the guys that didn't make the top 50 originally. Joe Johnson might not make that top 75 now. when I'm thinking about it. I would have to sit down and write out the names. Because I know Dominique didn't make the top 50. Dominique is definitely in the top 75 players of all time. Yeah, wow. So Dominique didn't make the top 50, so he would definitely be top 75. Hmm. That's something to think about. That is definitely something to think about. Joe Johnson definitely top 100. If you did the top 100 today, Joe Johnson's top 100. Look, don't get mad at me. I, these are your favorite players who went out there and they put the numbers up. Not me. Joe did and Melo did. Look, you got Carmelo 1.0 and then you got Joe behind him. It is a 1.0 and a 2.0. They're virtually the same player. I don't care what you say. Don't care what you say. They're virtually the same player. Yeah, it is what it is. Wow. Moving on. Moving on. I wanted to touch on this Tom Brady situation one more time, signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Welcome to the NFC South, Tom. If we ever get a hold on this COVID-19, this Corona situation, I will definitely make my way out to Mercedes-Benz and try to see Brady play in person for the first time and maybe probably the last time. My question is, will this work in Tampa? I'm going to keep it quick and simple. Yes, this works because of the weapons Tom has. He has weapons now. He has Evans, who he didn't have in New England. He had nothing offensively in New England. He was the offense. He was the guy. It was him. All the responsibility was on him. What happens to the New England Patriots? They go back to being the New England Patriots of the 1992 season and 91. If you don't know their record, go and Google it, look it up. They were pretty much the doormats of the league. It is over. The New England Patriots reign, that dynasty is done. As I said in my previous podcast, Bill Belichick, I think he's a great mind, but you need that player or players with the ability to execute your game plan. And in the NFL, you need a QB. You need a quarterback. That's why he wanted to trade Tom Brady and keep Garoppolo. But Robert Kraft came in and said, no, we're not doing that. We're keeping Tom, and that's that. Well, and here we are. I don't expect Belichick to last much longer. The guy's been coaching since forever. I mean, you got to remember, he was a coordinator going back to the New York Giants Super Bowl back in the early 90s, when they beat Buffalo. That's how long Belichick has been coaching. So I don't think he's going to be around long in New England myself. So I spoke in the last podcast that Antonio Brown wants to go to Tampa. Now, he's got to clear some hurdles before that happens, but Tampa is saying no. They're flat out saying no. Back in the past, this wasn't recent, but Bruce Arians said that Antonio Brown is too much of a diva for him. I've heard so many stories. I like Antonio. He plays hard as anybody on Sunday, and he practices hard. He's just got to make better decisions off the field, be on time, do some of those little things. But Antonio Brown, he had nothing but, when speaking of Arians recently, he had nothing but positive things to say. Look, I don't see it happening. But then I won't say I don't see it happening because, I've seen some crazy things happen in sports. And I heard a report earlier that if Tom Brady was coming to Tampa, Tampa was going to give him control of the roster, a la LeBron James, wherever he goes. So, could Tampa use Antonio Brown? Yes. Yes. I mean, they got Evans, but you can never have enough. You can never have enough number one receivers. So Yes. Do I think he's going to sign in Tampa? No. Look, it's so many hurdles that he'll have to pass to get down there into in the Tampa. He I don't has he even met with the NFL yet? He has to meet with the NFL about the sexual assault charge. I don't think he's met with the NFL yet, but I do think that he eventually I think he ended up paying one of the women off. I don't know exactly how that went. I try and stay away from all the legal mess that guys go through. It's not my place really, but when they put it out, I read it, and I'm just a messenger. But I don't think the Tampa thing is going to happen. All right, boys and girls, coming up is the last segment. Okay. So coming up again, like I said, is the last segment, story of the week, and then we will close out the podcast. I will catch you on the other side of this break. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. All right, welcome back. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. Our story of the week. It's going to always be an odd story. Not much going on sports-wise, so here you go. Earlier this week, there was a rat in New York. Yeah. A rat in New York. Goes hand to hand. New York. And rats seem to enjoy living there. But and I'm not talking about 6ix9ine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about 6ix9ine. I'm actually talking about the rodents. And again, I'm not talking about 6ix9ine when I say rodent either. A New York rat was seen carrying a McMuffin sandwich down a flight of stairs in New York. Wow. I'm loving it, someone else said in reference to the McDonald's tagline. What would you do if you saw a rat just walking by, minding his business, carrying a McMuffin or whatever kind of sandwich? Look, that rat was about his cheese. He was about his hunger, and he went and solved that problem. Shout out to that rat, I guess. And again, when I say rat, I don't mean 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine. Oh wow. Time for the best and worst stat line of the week. No, nothing really going on this week. I could have given the best stat line to somebody, but they haven't done it yet, so I won't. So this week we only have a worst stat line. And until the leagues start back up, they will continue to get the worst stat line of the week. That goes to all major sports leagues because most of them are canceled, meaning every stat in the stat book is a big fat zero. People, tell them how you really feel about that. Yeah, sorry. Again, you guys know I love cigars. I love adding a cigar to my humidor, my collection. Give me a good cigar to smoke. If you're listening to this, hit me up. Go on the YouTube side, comment, let me know. And on that note, I will close the podcast out. Thank you for spending your time with me, your Saturday of all things. Look for a new podcast every Wednesday and Saturday. If you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or on Anchor, go ahead and check out the podcast on YouTube as well. And when you're there, give the podcast a like and comment and subscribe to the channel. Share the channel on your social media platforms with your friends, family, everybody. Click on the Twitter link on the YouTube page. Follow me there too. You've been listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. And remember, it's your world. I just give my opinion. I'm out. Peace.
You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.